Let me mention two people that have come in. One is Stefan Parker. Stefan is our liaison with TRB. He's a great help and a great guidance for these kinds of programs with TRB. Thank you, Stefan. And the other is my boss. She's the vice chair of the Board of Trustees, the Mineta Institute, and that's Stephanie Pinson. Stephanie is president of Gilbert Tweed Associates, executive search firm, past chair of the Business Members Board of Governments at APTA. Thanks for being here, Stephanie. Now, let's have the private case for high-speed rail and how a privately funded project will stimulate some connectivity. Let me stress that private-funded high-speed rail doesn't work everywhere. You have to have a particular corridor configuration, and everything has to work perfectly. But if anybody can make it work, Judge Robert Eccles can do that. Bob is an example of another politician who has made it good in private life. He makes me feel more comfortable. Judge Eccles?
Senator, not to be too encouraging, but there's life after politics. I'm honored to be here. Appreciate, Rod, the opportunity to come and visit with you a little bit today. Senator, I was thinking as we were discussing earlier, and they were introducing you, and we've not had a chance to meet, but I'm pleased to do so today. I was actually in the Texas legislature in the early 90s when Ann Richards was governor of Texas, and we did create a Texas High-Speed Rail Authority. And apparently we did not listen, as Rod had talked to, we did not have your lessons at the time, because it was very much a top-down project. It was linking the Texas Triangle, political constituencies, but not enough of them, and it wound up collapsing because it did not have that kind of broad-based support, and tremendous opposition from the airlines and agricultural interest and other interests in Texas that did not feel like they were part of that process. And so it again shows that the different plans, different projects, different methods of delivery will work in different parts of the country, and really that's what I'm here about today. Drew, I liked hearing your presentation too, and while I was doing it, I was looking for my Amtrak guest rewards card. I actually have one. It has about 3 points on it. We don't have a lot of those in Houston, but I do try to. A little off the map here. Yeah, well, I use it when I'm up here in this part of the country or down in the East Coast, going between New York and Washington D.C. And Baltimore Airport in Washington D.C. But I like getting the updates all the time on email, so it's an interesting program and a great system, and I love your presentation as well. Jeff did a good job of talking about the connectivity that they were trying to bring, and I will try to be somewhere in the middle to show you the difference in what happens in a private system, perhaps, and a public system. And I have worn hats for both. Formerly as the county judge and chair of the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Houston-Galveston area region. We were very much involved with Metro and the regional planning for our both transit and highway and tollway and hike and bike trails transportation system for the Houston region. And as we get into this, as we talk about the connectivity, one of the common complaints I hear about America and challenges we hear about America from operators in Europe, particularly all the major European cities, where it's the French system, the German system, the Italians, the Spanish, Asia, Koreans, China now. I have not had a chance to see the Chinese high speed. The maglev was pretty interesting, and we watched them as it's developed. But they all tell us that they don't have collector distributor systems here like theirs, and you have a little bit of that in Philadelphia, New York City, lesser extent maybe in Washington, but they're right. In Texas, we do not have a collector distributor system like their collector distributor system, but we do have a collector distributor system, and it's called a freeway. And even in Philadelphia, 52% I looked at the cars either are taxis or automobiles leaving that station to go someplace that is not served by the mass transit system. And I say that because we won't have that system today. We will have a collector-distributor system like theirs over time. And you mentioned it takes 15, 30, 50 years. I know DART, John was here earlier, was a chair at DART, I think. I don't know if John is still back there, and DART represented here. They're on their 30th anniversary, I think, coming up now, and they have the largest light rail system in the United States, 85 miles, and we got some 60 stations or 80 stations, 61 stations. It's a big system, and we are pleased to be working with them. But fundamentally, we're a little different than most in that we are working on a discipline of the market as opposed to trying to develop a market. And so I'll tell you a little bit about our project, our market-led approach, and our process. And we may skip through a little bit of this is related to this, but this is our train. It's a pretty cool train. It's not unlike those that Mort showed, and I think Kawasaki builds the Chinese system. This is the Japanese Shinkansen N700 system. It is a fifth-generation Shinkansen. We are seeking to connect the two biggest markets in the Texas region and two of the top 10 markets in the United States for economic growth and development. That's the Houston and Dallas-Fort Worth regions. They're both about 7 million people. And unlike your California project, there's not a lot in between. It is pretty much open and rural flat, which is really why this project was identified by the consortium, the system integrator, JR Central Railways, and the consortium we have that is working to help bring this project to the United States. We do have a technology in mind, and it's not a rolling stock. It's different than the systems that we used when I was working with nonprofit or government-sponsored organizations to try to bring high-speed rail to Texas, and perhaps different than you're looking at in California because it is an integrated system of everything from the tracks to the rolling stock to the control systems. We're not building it incrementally. It is a deployed system that has been operating now for 49 years in Japan with zero loss of life accidents and a similar kind of 1 minute schedule, consistently on schedule that Mort mentioned earlier and other systems around the world. We are, however, collaborating with the state and local transit agencies, and having worn that hat as the head of the MPO for the Houston region, I understand that we're part of a transportation system. In fact, in that role, the nicest note I got as I left office was from the chairman of the Toll Road Authority, and what I found there was what he had experienced as well, was that all of the different transportation modes come into the planning process with blinders on, essentially. The toll road system had a toll solution. Transit guys had a transit solution, and even within transit, the bus people and the train people have solutions. The hike and bike people have a solution. The road people have a solution. The freeway people have a solution. And the fact is they're all right, and there's a place for all of this within the system, and it's a total transportation system. And so when we talk about connectivity into the urban core, we understand going into that we are part of that transportation system, and we'll be working closely with our communities to collaborate with how we best serve that region. So again, they identified 97 city pairs in the United States. Again, as you went through that process, Houston and Dallas-Fort Worth each have regions that approach 7 million people. Linking closely behind that is the Austin and San Antonio markets, which we think will be a logical second phase perhaps, or someone will come in and link us with that area and create that Texas Triangle mega region. And it does offer the kind of transformational economic incentives that Jeff talked about earlier with the California system. But again, in our case, this was looked at as the most innately financeable as a private project, again, because it is one state, rural flat, two big markets. We're not competing with a legacy carrier, Amtrak, with the improvements they're doing. There is actually Amtrak service between Houston and Dallas-Fort Worth. You go to San Antonio, I think it's about a 15-hour run if you're on the same day, because it's not every day. Otherwise, you have to spend the night, which isn't all bad in San Antonio. We like it, but it's not an existing service that we're dealing with. There are three primary rights-of-way linking our two regions, the Dallas-Fort Worth and the Houston region. The I-45, this is an illustration from the Texas Department of Transportation's high-speed rail planning request, grant request with the Federal Railroad Administration. Again, 290 corridor, I-45 and a BNSF route. The 290 is a Union Pacific line. And largely, we are trying to run on or adjacent to existing rights-of-way for two reasons. One, it's faster and less expensive. It's less onerous than taking greenfield kind of a process. It does lower the environmental impact and makes our whole project easier and eliminates a lot of controversy. And again, we find the freights, to the extent that they're willing to work with us, so far have been actually pretty interested in how we can provide a mechanism that can show that we have a safe system that can operate, again, parallel to theirs, but not integrated on theirs. We don't share tracks. Our system is totally isolated, no grade crossings. So the freight railroads, as we've discussed this with them, would like to use this as a mechanism to show that it can be done without having to disturb their freight traffic operations. So it's more a question of right-of-way and how we protect each other on those rights-of-ways. Our market-led approach, again, it was interesting, Senator, hearing about the process in the California region where you put together a political consensus to, one, pass a bond issue and then continue that process to get the public support. If we were doing that again, we would be in the Houston region and in the Dallas-Fort Worth area serving favored political constituencies, things we had to pull together in order to make the process to continue. In our case, we are driven much more by the discipline of the market, not being insensitive to the political needs of the communities, but still not able to divert into areas where we hope to build a market, but we have to have a market today to help provide revenue to pay off the debt of this system without public support. We are led by private owners, and while we use environmental issues as a big consideration in this and our impact on the communities, our first and driving factor is economic issues. Again, we have to generate more revenue than we do costs within our models as we move forward. That said, we do not believe that there is one size that fits all. The market needs of the Northeast Corridor are different. There's more revenue, there's more ridership, but it is a very different right-of-way and political dynamic with 9 states and Amtrak upgrading their service. California is different. The Chicago Midwest area down to St. Louis and the linkages up here are very different. We do believe that within our region that the city pairs between Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston and ultimately Austin and San Antonio perhaps makes a really nice connectivity for this technology and this system and this mechanism. Again, we hope to build at the core a spine which will get us started to demonstrate this project and then ultimately link perhaps within the Dallas-Fort Worth region and on within Houston to extensions that ultimately become profitable. So market-led means that we are very sensitive to alignment cost, construction delays, station locations, and the revenue, the ticket cost, and connectivity with other modes, because we do not have a subsidy, an operating subsidy, or a guaranteed ridership support from the public sector. We do have to, again, fit our market to be very customer-friendly and drive our pricing of our tickets to generate ridership and maximize revenue to be able to, again, to retire that debt and meet the financial requirements of our investors. We are, though, very sensitive to other modes of connection, both in the initial linkage into the highway system and long-term building to connect with folks like DART, with Houston Metro, Brazos Valley, Brazos Metropolitan Planning Organization in the Central Texas area, and how we can future-proof the system so that even if today we are not linked between downtown Dallas and downtown Fort Worth, long-term our goal is a single-seat ride, as is at the goal of the Metroplex from Fort Worth through Arlington to Dallas to Houston. So the process, again, this is a map of the Dallas-Fort Worth region's plan, 2035 plan for high-speed rail. They link, again, the Fort Worth region into downtown Dallas and then linking on down the I-45 corridor in towards the Houston-Galveston region. As we start evaluating the potential routes, how we link into the city, even where that station is within downtown, there is a difference in pricing of hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe over $1 billion, to go a mile or two within downtown Dallas-Fort Worth region. So we will work closely with the City of Dallas and DART, TxDOT, and the planners in that area to ensure that our system can maximize ridership access to our facility while also in the long term connecting into DART's facilities. They have a pretty good system that connects into downtown Dallas. And Dallas, again, is interesting because in Texas and in many parts of the country, cities have grown north and west. In Houston, the cities have grown north and west. So in Dallas, we really need to get into downtown, into that central business district, to capture that market that is north from Dallas into Collin County and west over towards Arlington and Tarrant County, and have an easy access for those people into our system, both on the freeway system and on the, again, pretty well-established DART system, the rapid transit area for DART, and the TRE, which is a commuter rail that links over it directly to Fort Worth. In Houston, it's a little different because Houston has developed north and west. And so we don't have to come all the way into downtown, although our goal is to do so. We are working with the Houston Metro organization and their plans for their light rail. They have a much smaller rail, although they have thousands of miles of transit systems with buses. We will have, our EIS will take us into downtown Houston, but we have a little more flexibility there because our market, again, is north and west, and we capture that a little easier in a broader range of station locations. Our commitment, however, has been, and our understanding, as has been discussed here, is that we understand that as we come into the city and we connect in with Metro, that we will drive transit-oriented development, and we, in fact, hope to capture a big portion of that revenue and value from that transit-oriented development to help pay for our system. So we do think that that connectivity is critical, that sufficient land for station development is critical for us and our revenue models to promote our system. It's a little different than Philadelphia, where you're developing the station to build a district. We hope to build a district. We just hope to have a bunch of that district as ours to help capture that value, again, long-term in our system. Again, not quite the scale, perhaps, of the district in Philadelphia, but at least a few blocks around there to generate, again, revenue for our system. So I wish I could show you lines on a map, but we are unlike California or Amtrak or the East Coast Corridor. We don't yet have those lines finalized. We're still working on what that will be. Our process is we'll finish the process to come up with what those lines would be, what we think would be our preferred alternative. We will issue a formal notice of intent shortly after the first of the year. We have worked out arrangements, agreements with FRA, TxDOT, and our organization on EIS process in Houston to Dallas-Fort Worth, and from Dallas to Fort Worth, connecting those two communities and how we would link it all together with high-speed rail. TxDOT is likewise working on its own, the Texas Department of Transportation, its own high-speed rail study from Oklahoma City through Dallas and Fort Worth, south on the I-35 corridor to Austin and San Antonio, and on down into the Rio Grande Valley, down in the Mexican border areas of Texas. So we'll be coordinating all of our projects together for ultimate connectivity between that long-term goal for those plans and other various state and federal agencies. So I think that's about the end of the formal presentation. As we move forward with our process, we'll be looking forward to updating both the Moneta, Rod and I talking about it, and keeping up with the California system. And we've, I think, had some good discussions, you and Travis and some of our folks earlier, about how we deal both with the regulatory side and ultimately work together to deliver a transformational technology to the United States. Thank you all.